All right, back again, dudes. We're back with another Moonkin Monthly with special guest David Q. We're here to talk about all the BFA Moonkin changes and all the recent stuff that we've had. There have been a bunch of talent shakeups. There have been a bunch of a semi rework of Moonkin, not in terms of resource generation, but there have been a bunch of new talents, reworked talents, changed talents. Talent trees kind of shaken up in terms of where it is. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is David Q. I play on Zoljin in the Guild podcast, and yeah, I don't have any role in the Dream Group.
Oh.
All right, back again. Nick, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Nick Druid, playing in not Onyxia, in a version on Onyxia EU. I'm not Nick's Druid, not the healer. I'm a Moonkin. You probably know me, expert in the Dream Group, same as Tettles.
Yep, and then I'm Tettles. I'm in AK on Hyjal. Back again, baby. And then I'm also an expert.
Tettles.
Yeah, everybody knows Tettles. And I'm an expert in the Dream Group as well. All right, and we're going to start with Tier 15. So we got the tier of Nature's Balance, Warrior of Elune, and Force of Nature. So for everybody who doesn't know, Nature's Balance kind of got a little bit of a change. Generates 2 astral power per 3 seconds, and then it gives you out of combat astral power generation, and it'll climb up to 50. Force of Nature also got a little bit of a tweak. Gives you 15 AP over the 10-second duration of the trees themselves. Maintained the taunt, though, so it still has the utility. So this row is a bit interesting. They kind of changed it from more of a utility slash take it or leave it, who kind of cares about this row, to a little bit more of some of your AP generation is going to come out of this row. So Nature's Balance currently generates 40 AP a minute. Warrior of Elune is currently at 33, plus the Lunar Strike damage, and then Force of Nature is obviously at 15 AP a minute, plus the tree damage. Do you guys have any thoughts on this row in general?
You want to start, David?
Yeah, I personally feel like the row is generally fine. Maybe some more numbers tuning, but the general mechanics of each of them are fine. The only thing I disagree with is the out of combat portion of Nature's Balance. I feel like it ramps up way too slowly to be of any use anywhere. Like in Mythic Plus, you won't be waiting 15 seconds, 20 seconds before doing another pull. You want to be chain pulling, and it just makes it useless.
Mm-hmm.
And in Raid, I don't see any point where you want to use out of combat regeneration. So the only place I'd say is questing or doing world quests, and I feel like that's not where you want to focus your talent design.
Mm-hmm. And then
Force seems fine though. Force of Nature is fine. It's still utility.
Mm-hmm. So do we think that Nature's Balance should be innately worse because it is passive regen?
I don't think so. I feel like that's the wrong way of going about it.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, haven't passive talents been more of the easier gameplay talents, or the less damage in resource generation, because they don't require any gameplay around them. They just are literally passive talents.
I'm actually not the biggest fan of Nature's Balance currently.
Mm-hmm.
Just plain as passive, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And the out of combat change is just it's whatever, especially Mythic Plus, because you pull anyway after each pack usually,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't matter. And for Raid, as David said already, it's pointless anyway to use.
So what do you guys currently think about Warrior of Elune being ahead damage-wise of Nature's Balance, even though Nature's Balance is
I think
technically more AP?
Warrior of Elune should be AoE situation-wise better,
Mm-hmm.
but not on single target. But at the same time, I don't think Force of Nature should be the best on single target. So, I think they should somehow rearrange or actually just change Nature's Balance.
Mm-hmm.
So we use Warrior of Elune on AoE, Force of Nature for the utility and maybe the damage at the start, because it does a fuck ton of damage right now. And then something else for Nature's Balance for single target, I guess.
What do you guys think about more of our power being put into our builders as opposed to our spenders? I know this is more of a change on the base spells as opposed to tier 15, but what do you guys think about that as a whole? like Solar Wrath damage and Lunar Strike damage has like increased, whereas the power of Star Surge and Starfall has pretty much been like a lot lower.
I feel like it's kind of nice in a way that if you want like priority damage on like a target, you don't have to like pool as much since less of your damage is into your spenders. So let's say like if a priority targets comes up and you don't have like close to a cap astral power to dump 2 Star Surges into it, you'll not be as worried just because you can Solar Wrath / Lunar Strike for not as much damage obviously, but you won't be completely useless.
And it used the instant cast Lunar Strikes as well from Warrior Balloon, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Alright, on to tier 30. Alright, so we're just going to kind of briefly touch over Tiger's Dash, Renewal, and Wild Charge. We know these really don't make like the biggest impact in terms of like damage-wise, but like they're more gameplay-focused. So what do we think about how Tiger's Dash is going to be impactful in a raid? Do we actually think it has uses, or do we think it's kind of like a dead talent, or like what do we think about it?
So far from like raid testing on beta, I think it might see like a few uses in some situations, but overall it's just bad for us because of all the GCDs and stuff. You need to go in cat form, or you actually go in cat form, and then you need to go back into Moonkin form. Just not as good as Displacer Beast was.
Okay.
Even like I think it would be fine if it didn't replace Dash. Like replace it, like the fact that it replaces it and is like a worse version on a shorter cooldown, it just kind of irks me. But I could see like from having raid tested just a little bit, I could see it being used on some fights still. Like on Fetid Devour, I could see it being safer than Wild Charge because you can cover a much longer distance quickly.
Gives you cooldown too. Yeah.
Right. When you want to like get out of the cone or whatever, because the cone can be very bad if you're in this positions.
Okay. And then what are our thoughts on Renewal? I know it didn't see too terribly much play. I know I kind of played around with it on a few fights. I know I played with it on Varamathras, Coven, and MNR, but like I know most people just didn't use Renewal. What do we think about that talent?
I mean, it's just like depends on the encounters on the raid. It's fine, I think. It's okay to have it. I don't have like anything else that we need in that row. A heal is nice to have sometimes, like a big heal. Even if our regrowth got buffed to like an instant heal, it's 30%, right? So it's pretty decent. Maybe see some play in the first raid. I doubt it, but who knows?
I actually was playing healer for like a few fights during raid testing, and Renewal actually seemed like it was a little bit better than both Tiger's Dash and Wild Charge for Resto, but we'll see how that actually ends up shaking out. It's hard to tell sometimes. Alright,
Yeah.
Wild Charge is the obvious go-to. Pretty default for this row. Kind of sucks that Wild Charge is on the GCD now. Like, it makes our movement like pretty awkward because you'll go Surge and then you want to instantly Wild Charge sometimes, but then it's like, well, now I have to wait a second and a half after the Surge GCD because Wild Charge is also on the global. It's not necessarily about the half second after the Wild Charge, it's more about the not being able to Surge insta-charge.
Even then, I feel like that's not as big of a deal as having to wait before a mechanic comes out, just in case you need to dodge it. Like that, I feel like that just makes the skill cap much lower, and it just makes it really clunky to play.
Also, shapeshifting insta Wild Charging is like really awkward now because you have to like wait a second and a half for the GCD of the shapeshift. So like you can't go like insta stag and then Wild Charge like you could on, I don't know, KJ or something, or like just like other mechanics where just shifting and then Wild Charging would be good. You just aren't gonna always have that option now too, which is like really awkward.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right, like having to wait around to make a meaningful decision instead of thinking on the fly and having like your movement bought up so you don't lose casts. Well, it doesn't feel right to me. I feel like it's a stupid decision.
I definitely agree. Alright, on to more damage talent. So we're going to tier 75. We're going to skip over tier 45 and tier 60. We're just going to go straight to the damage talents of Soul of the Forest, Twin Moons, and Incarnation. Pretty awkward talent row, I would say, because of like how they are all designed. So we want to start with Soul of the Forest. So what do we think about Soul of the Forest and how it competes with Twin Moons and Incarnation, both in its own regards?
You go ahead, Nick.
Okay. I think it's in a really good spot compared to like Legion, where it was only used for AoE until like later on, and I think early on you sometimes used it too on single target. Not sure about that one, but like it's on a decent spot right now. They got buffed pretty hard. It already reduces the not the cooldown, the cost of Starfall by 10 astral power instead of 20, and gives plus 30% on empowerment damage.
And that falls into like the new Eclipse system that they added, to where every single time you cast Wrath or Lunar Strike, you get a 20% chance to get the opposite side. So basically, if you cast a Wrath, you have a 20% chance to grant an empowered Lunar Strike, and same like if you cast Lunar Strike, you have a 20% chance to grant an empowered Wrath, which is like pretty good for this iteration of Soul of the Forest, especially at 30% empowerment. It's going to be fairly competitive against Incarn, especially after the CA buffs from 20-second duration, or from 15-second duration to 20% or to 20 seconds, the removal of the astral power buff, and then the addition of haste. So it's like a normal damage cooldown, as opposed to like what it was before. It was like an awkward like astral power generator, which was like really inferior to how Incarn functioned as a whole. So Soul of the Forest, with the new buff changed Celestial Alignment, could definitely see some play on single target.
I think it's probably the most balanced talent in the current iteration of the changes on that row, compared to like Twin Moons and Incarnation.
So what do we think about Soul of the Forest for AoE though? I mean, obviously for single target it's like really good, but how do we think it fares in like comparison to Twin Moons? I guess we can talk about these kind of simultaneously. Twin Moons is just like revamped LATC, 20% dot damage on Moonfire plus double dotting, so it's like a big QOL thing. Kind of cuts down on the GCDs for AoE. Could be big for Mythic Plus. I don't know. What do you guys kind of think about the AoE comparison of Soul of the Forest and Twin Moons together?
Well, just because of how they're on the same row, like there's going to be a point where it's not worth casting Moonfires at all, right, on like a specific number of targets, just because you'll be lacking the astral power generation to actually like put a relevant number of Starfalls down, if any at all. So I feel like that's fine in a way. So you choose Twin Moons on like fights where there's like multiple targets, like anywhere between like 2 to like maybe 8 or 10. I don't know, those are like numbers thrown in the air, but and then Soul of the Forest would be more about like Mythic Plus, I guess. But I'm actually okay with that. It feels fine to me. The only thing I don't like is their interaction with shooting stars, but I think we'll talk about that later.
You just lose so much by taking 2 moons on single target in dungeons. Like in Mythic Plus especially, you don't want to lose all your single target because of Twin Moons.
Yeah, so currently Soul of the Forest is like relatively competitive with Incarn on single target. Because it's like by and large due to CA, but at the same time it's also due to the empowerment damage being like a pretty big piece of like how balance and BFA is going to like function. So maybe we're going to see Soul of the Forest be the default tier 75 choice for Mythic Plus. I wouldn't be super shocked, because you do give up so much damage by taking Twin Moons.
It's a lot. Also, Incarnation got like indirect nerfs through all this by like losing IFE especially. 3 minutes as a cooldown for like Incarnation is not good.
It's not a cooldown that's worth a 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially seeing that as you only gain 5% damage and 10-second duration. Since Celestial Alignment is 20 seconds now, it just makes the base version much stronger, and the increase that you get from taking Incarn is becoming more and more minimal.
I think Incarn as a talent's like a relic of the past in terms of like how talent should function. So I know it was like pretty big in Warlords of Draenor, because Celestial Alignment was its own talent, or not its own talent, but it was its own cooldown, like a base cooldown. And then you'd talent into Incarn, you'd have both of them, and you just pop them at the same time, and you would have some of the highest burst in the game. But now Incarn is just like a really long cooldown that we don't really have that lines up with anything else. So it's like not. It's not always going to be advantageous to take it, even though I would like to take it because it looks cool. It's not like super great to take. Which
Yeah, I agree.
Which, yeah, I don't know. Just it being
It's just, I think they should just like maybe bake in IFE in some way, maybe a nerfed version of the current IFE.
Or
So
it could even grant astral power. Or like it could have that astral power generation increase. It just needs a touch up. It needs some loves in some form or fashion.
Exactly.
I don't think it matters how. I think it just needs a little bit of changing because I think it should by default be the go-to tier 75 talent because of how like Soul the Force is 100% passive. So Incarn should be like that more active, that more burst. You should get something out of it. You should be able to like play around this big 3-minute cooldown as opposed to like that you have the talent into like on top of that as opposed to like kind of lackluster, not great. It's okay. It should feel impactful and it does not.
The fact that a talent like Soul the Force that has an AoE component does as much single target as Incarn or even more is not good design.
Yeah, no, it definitely just needs. I think it just needs a touch up. I don't think it's like in a bad spot or anything. I think it just needs a little bit of a buff somehow.
Right. I kind of want to touch on what you talked about earlier, the Eclipse proc. I kind of like the mechanic, but I just feel like it kind of limits the gameplay in a sense where you can't pull 3 empowerments as often just because you'll be like in fear of wasting a proc if it does happen. So I feel like that'll just make it a bit clunky at times. So I don't know how you would go about that. Maybe if Eclipse proc, you could go up to 4 or something, but maybe it won't be as bad with our reduced astral power generation or with the amounts of secondary stats we'll have compared to Legion. But seeing as how in Legion, like you often overcap empowerments of 3, I'm interested to see how that's going to work out with an empowerment proc on a 20% chance.
Yeah, so currently in BFA, you're casting approximately 4 builders per spender, right? And then in this case, like Star Surge. So you're only going to be casting like relatively like 1 unempowered spell per like a round of Star Surge, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be that bad, but at the same time, the fact that you can cap empowerments just because of RNG does seem like an oversight in design, and it makes you not want to pool astral power because of it, right? It makes you always
think about King Garrod in the current situation. Like when you pool 128 astral power and Star Surge the adds 3 times, you end up having a lot of empowerments, and you probably end up overcapping or losing some procs because of it, which is like not good at all. And it happens often. Like you end up overcapping a lot on beta.
Yeah, and I think capping empowerments shouldn't be like a real thing. It should be something that you're able to play around as opposed to like I want to always be at like below 40 astral power and like always like using my builders.
Also in general, I think Eclipse in general is like a good design, but I think they should have made something with the Lunar empowerments. They just feel so like left out, I guess. Like, some empowerments are neat.
Yeah.
Like those blast damage, that's quite good, but like the Lunar empowerments, I don't know. They feel like left out.
It's just straight up
changes.
damage.
Yeah.
Dude, it does a fuck ton of damage though. It
does damage.
Okay.
What's your language?
I think.
No. Okay, I was doing Mythic Dungeons with Nick, and I was actually just cranking. I was actually just doing so much with Lunar Strike, like on AoE. I was like, what the hell? It was actually just so much damage.
It does a lot of damage, but it's just boring.
It's
in my opinion.
Just boring. I agree. Alright, so as for tier 90, we got the tier of Starlord, Stellar Drift, and Stellar Flare. So what do we think about Starlord, and how does it like work in this case? Well, actually, I think we should talk about like what's changed. So currently, Starlord got reworked. It's now essentially the tier 24 piece. So it's 3% haste stacking up to stacking for 15 seconds up to 3 times, but it does not refresh the duration. So really similar to exactly the same as the 4-piece of tier 20, except nerfed by the percent haste. So what do we think about this talent as a whole? Like how it's designed, how it's tuned. What do we think about it?
I feel like it's fine. Like design wise, it just needs a bit of numbers tuning because currently at 30% haste bonus on a 3 stack, non-refreshing just feels really bad. I feel like it doesn't have enough impact the way it is currently. Or I'm not even sure if it competes with the other talents, right?
No,
Like
currently
target, it's not as good, and on AoE, Stellar Drift is better.
Yeah, currently Stellar Flare is better, like up to 4 targets.
5 targets.
Yeah, 4 or 5 targets. Yeah, Stellar Flare is just strictly better than
so
Starlord.
much damage.
So I think Starlord needs a bit of a buff because I think like from how I look at this talent selection, it should be like Starlord is like 1 target only. Stellar Flare is like
Stellar Flare would be like 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Yeah. And then Stellar Drift is like 5+, right? Or 4+.
Maybe 2 to 4 that are non-stacked.
I could see that. Yeah, definitely. I think Starlord's just a bit undertuned. I think it should see like either percent haste buff, like stack size increase probably, like duration increase maybe. It should definitely see a buff in some form or fashion, but how they go about buffing it's not really what I really care about all that much.
Yeah, I feel like on the design perspective, I feel like it'd be better if they just buff the amount of haste you gain per stack. Just makes it so you can play around like a short duration buff and like capitalize on the increase you get at full stacks compared to just being a passive increase. But it definitely needs to be more than 3%.
Okay. And then Stellar Drift has seen some pretty heavy nerfs. It went from 60% starfall damage to down to 25, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah.
So it's gotten some pretty heavy nerfs. It's only really used on like 4 to 5+ targets in BFA, which it feels kind of.
I'm sad about it.
I am sad about it, but I 100% understand why.
Yeah, it was just too strong. Of like a single.
It definitely was too strong compared, or not actually combined with OI, especially. Just end up having like so much mobility.
On
an example, play that build.
Yeah.
It's just a must pick in every single situation.
Yeah.
Be never talent out of in any content / target requirement.
I'm sad that it's not great to use anymore because it was also like really like good and fun in Mythic Plus because you were able to like move in your AoE while you were AoEing trash, so you could like do mechanics seamlessly. And then after Dad Build became a thing.
In Mythic Plus, right?
Yeah. Maybe. I think it's too.
I guess it depends on how you pull the dungeons and how they are like built.
You could potentially play Stellar Flare, yeah.
You could, yeah.
For like a dungeon similar to like Upper Kara or Court of Stars, I could see you playing Stellar Flare.
I guess so. But like again, going back to your argument of
should Stellar Flare be the go-to AoE talent though? Like for up to 4 targets, I think 4 targets is just too much for Stellar Flare because it seems like so hard to micromanage because now it's like hard to generate enough AP to constantly have 1 starfall down. So Stellar Flare is like kind of awkward to like play on 4 targets because you just don't have enough AP to have it all, right?
Can you even put a 1 starfall down if you're keeping Stellar Flare on 3 or 4 targets?
Yeah, you can have 100% uptime on starfall. It's just really awkward, and you have to like pace yourself on like how you're starfalling and how you're Stellar Flaring, right? So it'll be like 1 Stellar Flare, 2 Stellar Flares, Lunar Strike, drop a starfall or whatever, and then drop the other 2 Stellar Flares, right? It's gonna be awkward in how you have to pace the rotation itself too, I think. Which I would personally prefer Stellar Drift to be the go-to.
I think it should be for like 2 to 3 targets, and that's all. Not more.
Yeah.
Not on single target. I don't know. I don't think it should be the go-to on single target. It just feels wrong.
I don't love playing it because it has a cast time.
I don't mind having 3 dots. It needs some
I couldn't
quality
enjoy
of
it
life
with 3 dots.
changes.
If
In my
it
opinion.
was the single target go-to, I think I'd be more happy, as opposed to like this looks like Starlord should be the single target. Like if Starlord was the 2 to 4 target, I think I would be much more happy than if the Stellar Flare was the 2 to 4 target, right? Because Stellar Flare is hard to micromanage on multiple targets, especially like that. Especially it has a cast time, has a cost. They removed the facing requirement, which is like really good because that was obnoxious, but it's still hard to play around.
I think it should be used on flat out targets, like 2 to 3 targets.
Mhm.
I don't know about
Targets
the
in which you have
single target
downtime,
part.
right? I think in targets that you like are gonna outrange ever, it could be used to like an Agrimar or something. Like if you have to ever range Agrimar, it should be the default talent for that, right? I don't know.
Up to 3 targets, like 3 above and above, should be Stellar Drift in my opinion.
I personally don't like playing with it. I don't know what other people think about it though. I don't know. It's kind of awkward.
I know about Starlord. I think Starlord
Flare.
should just be like
Stellar Flare.
I kind of enjoy Stellar Flare.
You like it?
On
AoE?
I don't mind it.
You like it on AoE? I don't like it on AoE. I don't mind it on single target. Single target's like easy to manage, but like whenever
I mean, on like its best scenarios, like 2 to 3 targets, I feel like it's great just because you don't have to have a Starfall down for it to do any sort of damage like Moonfire and Sunfire.
Whenever they
That's
they changed the
damage.
mastery. They changed it to like to scale with mastery, and they removed the part where it could potentially scale with stellar empowerment, which is like pretty big for that because now you don't have to like it's not required to have a Starfall down for you to actually do damage with Stellar Flare, which is actually pretty good. I think it's a good change overall.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So tier 100, what do you think about the row with Shooting Stars, Fury of Elune, and New Moon? I personally think this is like the most problematic row we even have.
I agree.
Starting off with Shooting Stars, it got nerfed from 4 AP to 2 AP and moved to this row with these other generators. What do we think about Shooting Stars?
It's
To be
AIDS.
honest, yeah, exactly. You should either make it baseline and remove the damage, and maybe give it like diminishing return on AoE, or just remove it from the game. It's just bad. I don't like it. It's not good.
It's fallen into the category of those talents that are mandatory for a certain situation, which happens to just be like 3
Every
plus.
AoE situation.
Yeah,
situation.
every AoE situation it feels almost mandatory because of how it functions. Because like you're gonna at some point you're gonna spend so much time dotting, you're not gonna have enough time to cast spenders, right? But at the same time, you want to dot, you want to cast spenders, you want to cast your lunar strikes too, but you just don't have enough global. So Shooting Stars is mandatory to some extent, but at the same time, it shouldn't be something that I have to talent into, right?
Yeah. I think it's just too strong overall.
It just
feels like you need it. You always need it whenever you do AoE.
we're not gonna have you choose between AoE and single target talents. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
Just feels also bad for Mythic Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Because you end up losing a lot on single target again.
You lose a lot for talent in this
Yeah.
too because it's two targets, and like right now it's only like good on 3 to 4 targets, and then of course there's going to be like some target breakpoint which is just not even good. So currently it's only generating 2.2 AP per Moonfire, which in terms of efficiency of like cast, that is not enough. Like you're only getting like, hello cat, one and a smidge Moonfire like return on the investment on casting. And it just feels like really bad. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like the way it fits into that row.
Yeah. Okay. So Fury of Elune, they kind of changed how this works. So that it still does the beam from the sky and does the damage, but now it generates 40 astral power over the 8-second duration of the Fury of Elune. What do we think about this talent as a whole?
Bad. Straight up bad.
Bad design. Bad.
Not enough astral power generation. The cooldown of it is too long. 1.3 minutes is just straight up too long, and it does like no damage.
Okay.
1.3 minute cooldown is such a weird
Yeah.
So that's a minute 20 seconds, right?
Yeah, it just feels weird because most mechanics are not based around that sort of timing. Like in like raids or dungeons, you usually think of like raid mechanics coming every 45 seconds, every minute 30, and this cooldown's like a minute 20, so it'll either lose uptime, you'll have to leave it like off cooldown to wait for those moments, since it fills the niche of that burst damage / astral power generation, or you get to use it on cooldown and it just feels bad because of you miss out on like actually using it on the relevant mechanic.
So what do you think would make it better? Do you think lining it up properly at like a minute or like 45 seconds would make it better? Do you think maybe increasing the damage on it to where it could be like a standalone like damage source would be better? Like, what do you think would make it better?
I think either of those options, but since it's in the row of like generators, probably go that way and increase the astral power generation. You could even put something cool like generate more astral power early on, and as Fury of Elune duration increases, comes to its end, like it starts generating less, so it'd be more bursty. But yeah, you could either do that, increase its damage, or change its cooldown. Either of those are fine, but just right now it's trying to fill the niche of burst generation / damage, but it just doesn't do it well enough to probably ever be picked.
What do we think about the fact that it actually does damage?
I think it should do damage.
You think it should? Okay.
Just like shooting stars and human do damage.
So either should increase the AP generation, increase the damage. I think regardless it should be like either bumped up to a minute and a half and do more, or cut back to a minute and do less, or even cut back to 45 seconds and do less. I think the fact that it does as little as it does, and it's at such an inopportune timeline for like pretty much any raid dungeon mechanic. I would say raid more than dungeon. It's such an inopportune time for any raid mechanic. It's hard to take. For like Portal Keeper, you get ads like every 35-ish seconds. So like there is no chance in hell that my Fury of Elune is going to line up well with this bullshit of like a minute 20. Like what kind of cooldown is that? I just don't understand it.
Also, the fact that if you put it on a target and the target dies, it just stays.
It just stays there.
So bad.
Okay, the fact that you can't refixate is furious. It like infuriates me. The fact that like I accidentally drop it on the low health target, then my fucking like it refixates, which is cool. Like, or it follows the targets now, which is like cool. But the fact that if my target dies, it just doesn't refixate to anything, is just mind-bogglingly infuriating.
I feel like that's just like such an oversight.
It has to be an oversight, right? It can't like.
It must be.
Yeah. All right, and then as for New Moon, what do we think about this talent? Do we think it? I have issues with two of these talents. I don't think two of these talents should be talents at all. I think they should either be baseline or just like completely removed from Moonkin. I don't think either of them should be talents. But like, what do we think about New Moon as it is?
I'm fine with New Moon being a talent. I just think the recharge time is just too long, with being 30 seconds. Maybe like make it like 5 to 10 seconds less. It does really good damage on the beta right now, which is decent. I guess it's like, I would say it's the go-to for like raids right now, because it just does so much damage. Like the full moon, it hurts.
There could potentially be issues of it getting outscaled though.
That's true, yeah.
But damage doesn't scale well, right?
It would get outscaled by Fury of Elune if it got outscaled by anything, which is, oh man.
Okay.
We don't want that.
Just think about it. Moon's got outscaled, but like it wasn't as apparent in Legion because like you didn't. I don't think most people understood why, but the reason that we were casting Full Moon in our opener earlier on, in like New Moon and Half Moon in our opener in EN and stuff, was because like moons were so strong. They have like a weaker spell power coefficient, so if eventually you just stop casting them in your cooldowns because they were getting outscaled, they could have.
They also don't scale with mastery.
Yeah, exactly. They only have spell power coefficients. So the fact that like, well, I guess they scale with versatility and crit, but they don't like. Obviously, those stats aren't our bread and butter in terms of like damage. We want to stack mastery and haste as a general rule just because of how we function as a class and like how the rest of our stuff scales. So the fact that we have like that moons just don't scale with our mastery is like really awkward and just leads to potential for it to get outscaled. I don't know if it could get outscaled by Fury of Elune, but the potential is there, and the precedent has been set in Legion with how secondaries work, and we have seen it get outskilled before. Just in terms of like your opener, though, like it wasn't like in terms of like, oh, it's not worth casting these moons. It just got outskilled in terms of like this is not worth casting in your opener anymore. You spend these before your opener, then you pop cooldowns, then you're going ham with spenders, which is it's kind of concerning. But as long as they keep it balanced, it's not going to be an issue, right?
I think overall, it's like whole row is the big issue. Probably one of the biggest issues right now.
This is my problem, row 2. So shooting stars and moons to me should either be talents or they should be like completely eliminated, because moons feel almost obligated. I feel almost obligated to take them on single target because it breaks the monotony of my rotation. Plus, it gives me something to pool in terms of like full moon. Plus, it feels good to like press that other button, I think, is most of it too. And then whereas shooting stars is almost mandatory on AoE because of how we have to AoE with all of our dots and everything. We're not like a dot class. We're a builder spender with like maintenance buffs in the form of dots. So these dots are like mandatory for our stellar empowerment and our AoE. But then shooting stars is almost mandatory for it being able to like upkeep Starfall on AoE. So it turns into a problem talent because of this, not because of like
how strong it is.
Yeah. It's because of the GCD restrictions that we have and like the astral power restrictions that we have whenever we have to spend that many globals on dots, which is just a problem. I don't know. I would like to see them either removed, like more astral power base, or like because on AoE right now it's a real issue to be able to drop more than one Starfall, and you're never layering Starfalls again. The times of Legion of dropping Starfall GCD after GCD after GCD whenever you're pulling the whole entire stage in lower care is gone. That's not happening ever again. You are literally...
That's bad, man.
Dude, alright, that was so much fun. You just drop every single globals of Starfall. I'm like, this feels pretty funny.
The patrons in lower care.
Yep, exactly. You drop your Solar Beam, then you Sunfire, then you start spamming Starfall. Oh man, that was fun. But no, you're never going to drop more than one Starfall ever again. And it's like... I don't know how to feel about it. Like on some hand, I can understand why from like a design perspective, but at the same time, it kind of feels bad that like not enough powers in our spenders. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like just our power being shifted from spenders to builders more. Like is that a good design change, or is it worse, or like what do we think?
I think it's fine for single target, but it's really weird on AoE.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It makes just like our damage breakdown a bit better overall. Not like so dependent on crits, on Star Search crits.
Is it possible to balance Starfall while balancing Star Search?
With the current empowerment system, Stellar empowerments being around, no, I don't think so.
Okay, so what would you think should be changed? If
Probably removing Stellar empowerment and instead upping all the damage numbers from like our dots and everything else too, probably. I think that would be like a decent change. That way you keep your like single target, but your AoE isn't as broken anymore.
I don't think they would ever implement that change, honestly, because that's such a part of how the balanced AoE rotation works that it's pretty much its identity at this point.
Removal of stellar empowerment?
Yeah.
So the issue with that is that you have to give people a reason to want to cast Moonfire, and if you buff Moonfire enough, then it's gonna be
broke on AoE again if you buff it too much.
Stellar empowerment, it's nice, but it's just such a design, like it limits the design of everything else so much.
It feels like a design oversight. Yeah. I was honestly kind of hoping for like a full rework in terms of balance going into this expansion, but like I am happy with these changes. These changes are very refreshing and they are very good for the class as a whole. However, there are some oversights that are just not great for PvE gameplay, Mythic Plus gameplay as a whole. I don't know anything about PvP, and I don't know anything about like more of a casual sphere because I don't focus on that. but I know for high-end rating and Mythic Plus alone, these changes are not great.
Wait, Tettles in the high end?
MT?
Are you formatting
MT,
something?
MT.
I'm formatting the MDI, dude. I'm definitely high-end.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. The changes are overall refreshing and good, but they're like some core issues we have, especially with how the talent rows are currently placed, or how the talents are placed.
Yeah, I don't know. There could be a lot done with just a few changes in terms of like talent row allocation. I for one would like to see shooting stars either moved to baseline or removed or like changed as a whole. Nature's balance and like at minimum, nature's balance and shooting stars should swap places, right? And less power should be put into shooting stars, and we should have like we just have so many AoE generation issues, I think, because we're missing, like, we don't have enough globals to spend.
It goes back to like,
and especially if you're talenting Stellar Flare, like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah. There's just at this point, I'm kind of starting to feel like
I'm gonna get global locked. Like, what the fuck is gonna happen?
I mean, it's like enhancement shaman where you have so much stuff to keep up, but in terms of debuffs, like you don't see the swift like affliction warlocks. They always like they have dots to refresh, but dots are such a part of their damage that it's not as big of a deal if they're not like under Starfall.
And people want to call us a dot.
It feels
It
feels fine as affliction to refresh your dots, but it just feels bad as Moonkin because you just lose GCDs that you could be using, generating extra power for your spenders.
People want to call us a dot class, and we're not a dot class. We're just a builder spender literally with dots as a maintenance buff.
We just have dots.
Yeah, we just have
like something we play with.
It's elemental shaman with 2 dots.
Yeah.
It's
it might also be
literally
a point,
what it is.
When it's not worth fully moonfiring packs anymore.
Yeah,
And
that's a
would
problem.
make shooting stars like really weird and not worth it at all.
Yeah, no, there will be a target cap in which you just do not take shooting stars and you just never take Twin Moon. It's above 10 targets, so it hasn't been apparent to any of us, but there will be a point where it may not be worth taking shooting stars and it may not be worth taking Twin Moon, and you might actually just Sunfire, spam Lunar Strike, and then just drop Starfalls on cooldown, as opposed to literally fully moonfiring the pack as intended. But it's like, it's going to be like 15 plus targets, but there will also be a break point at which you're just generating so much astral power from shooting stars that it's going to be worth taking again. But like, it's just really clunky in some aspects of it. It feels kind of awkward from it, like for dungeons too. I don't know. More of it is going to get fleshed out whenever we see sims and we see like what's more optimal to play, and like how to play around it. But like in terms of like hypothetical of like how I think the class should function, it is kind of awkward.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking forward to making sound decisions in Mythic Plus. Let's just put it that way. Honor's going to be torn in between, like either completely losing my single target for AoE damage, or just being subpar, just to be able to do some sort of single target. And then using a weird ass playstyle where you don't moonfire just because you pull so large. And if you don't pull that large, you just do negative damage.
Is it acceptable to have to make those choices though? Like based on like composition, like say you're running with 2 other high single target damage dealers and you're supposed to carry AoE, is it acceptable to say, hey, you should have to make the choice of like what is better on AoE and single target, or do you think it should be more of a healthy medium?
I feel like something similar to that is fine. It's just the fact that some other classes, in terms of balance, don't have to sacrifice as much single target to do completely ridiculous AoE. Whereas at this point, we kind of have to.
We always end up losing so much single target for doing way more AoE.
Yeah.
It was such a boon gaining that build in
Yeah.
because it meant that our single target would be great while doing AoE, but I'm not sure if that was intended. But yeah, and just being able to compete with other classes was very nice, which we couldn't do before.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know how we would shake up if Soul the Archdruid never existed and Dad Build never came around. Like how Moonkin would function as a whole in Mythic Plus. Like if you didn't,
we would have been as good.
I 100% agree. I don't think we would be as good, but I think we would end up talenting like full AoE and then just doing ass single target. Which, like, prior to Dad Build, you would just play Soul of the Archdruid whenever you thought you needed more single target damage, which is fine, right? That's like a choice you had to make. Because it is actually lower AoE to be forced into taking Soul of the Archdruid. But, like, now it's not even a choice. It's like, well, I can do mediocre AoE and mediocre single target, or I can do, like, okay AoE and, like, no single target. There's no, like, healthy middle ground in my mind. Yeah. And that might just be tuning. Is that just tuning though? I don't know. I think it might come from a design issue more so than
I feel like it's a design issue just because of like not using like your Moonfire as intended. I feel like that's just wrong completely at a certain target requirement. I don't know. It could just be me.
It's probably a design issue. I agree. Yeah,
I definitely agree. So, I think that's probably where we're gonna wrap it up. I think we're good there.
Sounds good.
One change that I like is the normalization of AoE spells like Lunar Strike.
I'm actually so happy with that. Yeah, no, the fact that they changed Sunfire, Full Moon, and what was the other one to 8 yards? It was something else.
Lunar Strike.
Sunfire, Moonfire and Lunar Strike all to 8 yards is actually just so nice.
True, right? Or was that already?
Yeah, it was.
They just normalized everything to Fury Elune, which is very nice. I was going to be very sad losing the artifact.
My gosh, that would be so
Sunfire.
Yeah. Okay, cool. David Q, where can we find you, brother?
I stream on twitch.tv/DavidQ42. I stream Mythic Plus /rates. Other than that, I'm semi-active in the Dream Grove Discord.
As a white name.
As a white name.
As a nobody.
Alright. We got Nick from DE Anixia. Where can we find you, Nick?
As always, in the Dream Grove Discord. I stream on Twitch sometimes, mostly my raids, because there's like nothing else to do right now. I'll probably stream a bit more. My stream is just /NickDruid.
Yeah, and I'm also expert in the Dream Grove. You can probably find me there. You can hit me in DMs. Oh, I hate you. You can also hit me in the DMs on Discord if you want me to. If you want me to help you out, do raid, like log reviews, whatever you need. I also stream twitch.tv.
Are you advertising coaching right now?
Not advertising coaching. I'll help you out for free. Yeah, and I think that's where we call it for today, guys. Anything else you guys say?
No, I'm cool. Thanks for having me.
I'm fine, yeah.
All right, cool. Hope everybody has a nice day.